Welcome back, everyone. Today we have another dream analysis video, and boy are you guys in for a treat today, because today I'm going to be sharing with you guys the scariest dream I've ever had in my life. It still causes me a great deal of anxiety to talk about even now. I had this dream about a year ago, and I think I had it maybe 2 or 3 times. I wrote it down right away. I've since then gone back to the dream and rewritten it in a way that's a little bit more expressive, a little bit more creative, a little bit more beautiful to read. So I'm going to read that version of the dream to you guys today. Now, I was very, very, very cautious to not add anything to the dream that wasn't there before. That is the most difficult part of a dream analysis, is making sure that you jot down the dream exactly as it happened. You let your unconscious do the speaking. You don't try to add anything in there that you've come up since you've woken up. So I think I've done a good job of that today, and I think that I've made a good telling of this dream. This dream, it's incredibly complicated, it's surreal, and it's mind-boggling. I don't know how well of an analysis I'll be able to provide today, so I'm asking you guys in the comments to help analyze this dream for me. It's difficult, and it's utterly terrifying, as you guys will see. I'll read the dream now, and then we'll get more into the analysis. So, a long, desolate stretch of highway unfolds before me, leading inexorably to my grandma's house. The road is enveloped in a thick, suffocating fog, barely pierced by the dim glow of flickering streetlights. I pedal my bike down the empty asphalt, the only sound the quiet hum of wheels against pavement. I can't see any cars. Her house perches atop a looming hill, an ominous silhouette against the murky sky. At the base of the hill lies a swamp, a mire of stagnant water and twisted reeds, with an old barn standing eerily at its center. I attempt to bike through the bog, but the water is teeming with lifeless faces submerged below the surface, their vacant eyes staring up through the murk. The reeds wrap around my tires like grasping fingers. Panic grips me, and I leap onto the roof of the barn, the wooden beams creaking underfoot. I make my way into my grandma's house, only to find its interior transformed into a labyrinth. Corridors twist and turn in impossible ways, yet everything feels hauntingly familiar. The walls are adorned with peeling wallpaper, and paintings hang askew, their images faded and distorted. Mold festers in every corner, a musty scent permeating the air, while the drywall crumbles to dust at the slightest touch. Vines and wild plants overrun the space, their tendrils creeping along the floors and wrapping around decaying furniture. As I navigate the maze-like passages, dread settles into my stomach, and I know she's somewhere nearby, my grandma, lurking around the corner. Each step is taken with deliberate caution, my senses hyper-aware. Suddenly, I realize I can fly. I lift off the ground effortlessly, soaring through the dilapidated rooms at breakneck speed, searching for hiding places in a desperate attempt to evade her unseen pursuit. Finally, I burst out of the house, the oppressive atmosphere releasing its hold on me as I escape into the night, a gnawing certainty that she's still searching for me. The path ahead is lit by faint, flickering red firelights that cast elongated shadows, warping the surrounding trees into menacing shapes. The air is thick, almost tangible. As I tread cautiously forward, eventually, I arrive at an imposing old Victorian mansion, its darkened windows like empty eyes watching my approach. Summoning courage, I knock on the heavy wooden door. An old woman answers, her face lined with age, but her eyes sharp and calculating. She tells me and my companion, who has inexplicably appeared at my side, feeling as familiar as a lifelong friend, that we may enter if only we leave our map behind. Confusion washes over me. I don't recall having a map. Her gaze drifts to my feet, and I follow it to see a serpent coiled and ready to strike. Instinctively, I stomp on it, the sudden motion breaking the tense silence. Reaching into my back pockets, I discover 2 maps, one real, one fake. Wariness fills me as I remember the snake and perceive the old woman as a witch, her request laced with hidden intent. I hand her the counterfeit map. She accepts it, with a knowing smile and steps aside, allowing us to cross the threshold. Inside, darkness envelops us. The only light comes from a dim lantern the old woman carries, its feeble glow barely pushing back the shadows. We ascend a narrow, spiraling staircase, the steps creeping ominously beneath our feet. The walls are lined with countless large paintings. I strain to make out the images. Portraits of historical figures like Frederick the Great, Napoleon adorn the corridors, but they're all wrong. Depicted in the wrong time period, representing incorrect or completely fictional nations. A sense of disorientation takes hold of me. The stairway grows tighter, the walls closing in, as if the house is alive itself and intends on swallowing us alive. My friend glances back at me, confusion etched on his face. "Where is she leading us?" he whispers. The old woman has vanished ahead, lost around the winding bend. Realizing we've been climbing far longer than seems possible, unease spreads between us. Spotting a door to our right, we seize the opportunity and slip inside. Relief washes over us as we enter a small, dimly lit room. A peculiar blend of an office and bedroom. The air is thick with dust, particles dancing in the weak light of a solitary lamp. I sink onto the bed, its old springs groaning under my weight. "I have a bad feeling about this place," my friend confesses, his eyes darting nervously. "I think we've gotten in too deep." Questions bubble to the surface of my mind. "Where are we? Who are you?" I ask. My voice barely audible. He doesn't answer, instead gesturing towards a cluttered mantelpiece adorned with aged photographs. I approach the mantel, picking up a black and white image that feels both foreign and intimately known. Faces of relatives and friends stare back at me, their expressions frozen in time, yet something is off. Their clothing and hairstyles don't fit any era I recognize. They seem dislocated, trapped between worlds. A chill runs down my spine. "Look," my friend says, pointing towards the window, a faint, erratic light flickering outside. I move closer and peer through the grimy glass to see a figure standing 5 floors below on the grass beneath a gnarled tree. He holds a lantern aloft, but its light reveals nothing of his face, which remains obscured in shadow. No matter how much I squint my eyes, he evades me. He raises a hand and points directly at me. "Who are you?" I call out in a trembling voice. He doesn't respond, instead directing his finger upwards. Dread pools in my stomach as I tilt my head back to look above. Descending rapidly along the exterior wall of the mansion, moving with unnatural agility like a grotesque spider, is the old woman. She's naked, her pale skin stark against the darkness, a mechanical grin stretching across her face. A high-pitched squeal escapes her lips, a sound that freezes the very blood in my veins. Heart pounding, I wrench the window shut and stumble back, only to find my friend has vanished without a trace. The room seems to close in around me as a violent pounding begins at the door, each knock reverberating through the floorboards. The force rattles the very walls, and despite every instinct screaming at me to flee, my hands move of its own accord towards the doorknob. The door swings open to reveal the old woman once more, now clothed, and appearing as she did when we first met. Her eyes fixed on mine with a mix of disappointment and fatigue. "I'm tired," she says softly, her voice carrying an eerie calm. "I need the real map if I am to rest." Trembling, I reach into my pocket and hand her the genuine map. She takes it, with a slight nod, her fingers brushing against mine, cold as ice. Without another word, I close the door, the latch clicking into place with finality that echoes in silence. The oppressive weight lifts, and the dream fades to darkness. So, yeah, that was the dream. Absolutely terrifying. Ungodly to live through. It still causes me quite a bit of anxiety to think about it. It's layered and hyper surreal. Very abstract. I don't fully understand it. I'm going to provide you guys with a base analysis today, but it's the best I can do. I have to read off of some notes, but it's the best that I can do today. This is a dream that I might have to come back to in future videos. I don't know if I will for certain, but you guys are going to have to help me out in the comments with this one because, like I said, an incredibly complicated dream. So here's what I've made out of it. So The long, desolate stretch of highway symbolizes the path of individualization, a journey towards self realization and the integration of the unconscious with the conscious self. Highways in dreams often represent life's direction and progress. The desolation and fog suggest uncertainty and the obscured nature of my current path, indicating feelings of being lost or uncertain about my life's direction. So, I think it's pretty clear what the highway means. I think that analysis perfectly details that out. I don't think there's too much more I can say about that. Now, when I'm biking down this highway, it wasn't so much that I was directly going to my grandma's house. I was lost for quite a while. I was kind of doing laps, doing circles. Now, this highway, it exists in real life, and so does my grandmother's house. The Victorian house does not exist in real life. That is not a real place. But my grandma's house does exist on a hill next to a long highway that kind of bridges the gap between my grandma's house, which I would go to quite often as a child. Almost every weekend I would spend at my grandma's house, and the town which I live in, which is not highly populated. There's about 100,000 people in it, so it's a pretty populated town. I think it's the biggest hamlet in the world, but it separates this order from this chaos, this abstract realm, which is my grandma's house, where I have the actual dream, where I live out the horrors, which we'll get to in a second. So this highway here is a bridge between worlds, and I was lost in it for quite a while. I didn't find my way to my grandma's house until, I don't know at what point in the dream. It's hard to track time in a dream, but it took a while to find my grandma's house. So then we get to the swamp and the barn. The swamp embodies the murky depths of the unconscious, areas filled with unresolved emotions and memories. The stagnant water and twisted reeds signified entanglement with past experiences that hinder progress. The old barn serves as a repository of hidden knowledge or forgotten aspects of myself. Attempting to bike through the bog reflects my struggle to navigate these unconscious territories, while the lifeless faces submerged in the water represent suppressed emotions or memories that seek acknowledgement. What that represents. The faces in the reeds still haunt me. I can still see them pretty vividly. They're akin to the faces in the marshes in the I believe it's the second book. It might be the second book or the third book of Lord of the Rings, but the third movie, where they're crossing the marshes with Gollum, and Frodo falls into the water. Very, very, very similar visuals to what I was seeing in that dream. And then the old barn kind of serving as the knowledge that's to be gained from within that chaotic structure of bog and repressed memories. Difficult to talk about. This is a very, very personal dream, so the panic and the roof of the barn. So my panic signifies the emotional turmoil encountered during the individualization process. Leaping onto the roof symbolizes a desire to rise above the immediate challenges, seeking refuge or a different perspective. The creaking wood beams mirror the instability and tension within my psyche as I confront deeper layers of the unconscious. So that's a big thing that is reflected in this dream, as I seem to be going deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers of my own unconscious. So you can almost see the highway as one layer. It's kind of the bridge. It's the ferry that you take into the underworld. And then I'm going deeper and deeper into these layers of, they're not so much hell as they are my own unconscious, but the roof of the barn and me standing on that is me kind of sinking one rung lower, and then I get to my grandmother's house, and then from my grandmother's house I get to the mansion, and the mansion seems to be the bottom, the basement. The basement to kind of reference Freud, but it's the bottom layer of my unconscious. So the labyrinth house. My grandma's house is a beautiful home. It's like a 50-year-old home. It's a bi-level. And it does have kind of complicated corridors. I mean, there's closed off portions of the house that you can't see other portions of the house from. It's not an open concept. So this labyrinth nature to the house is something that's intrinsic to the house in real life. It just was amplified in my dream to the point where I couldn't navigate a house that I grew up in. Like I said, I spent every weekend at my grandmother's house. So it's a house that I I know very, very well. She still lives there. So for my entire life, I've known this place. So entering the transformed interior of my grandmother's house as a labyrinth indicates the complexity of my inner world. Mazes represent the intricate pathways of the unconscious, where every turn holds potential discoveries or obstacles. The peeling wallpaper, fainted paintings, and overgrown vines symbolize the decay of outdated beliefs and the encroachment of new, perhaps chaotic elements within my psyche. This transformation suggests a period of transition and the necessity to navigate through confusion to achieve self-integration. The pursuit and flight. So the presence of my grandma as a pursuer embodies the anima archetype, the feminine aspect within the male psyche, or the nurturing aspect within the female psyche. Her pursuit may reflect an internal call to reconcile with the aspects of myself with these aspects of myself. The sudden ability to fly represents the emergence of newfound awareness or capabilities, enabling me to transcend previous limitations and escape from unconscious pressures. So I have an evolution within my grandma's house where I'm at first kind of crawling around, sneaking around corners, just barely looking past a corner to see if she's there because I have this feeling that she can close the distance rather quickly. And I eventually, as I get to the basement of the house and I start digging around more and I start finding hiding places that work better, I gain this ability to fly. So I gain this ability to navigate my unconscious effortlessly and to fly through the world. So I overcome that level of my unconscious and then I dive deeper. So then we get to the Victorian mansion. The imposing Victorian mansion signifies the grandeur and complexity of the unconscious mind. The Victorian architecture often embodies tradition and structure, hinting at deeply integrated beliefs and values. The old woman who demands the relinquishing of the map represents a wise archetype or a gatekeeper of knowledge. Maps and dreams symbolize guidance and understanding of one's path. The dual maps, real and fake, reflecting the discernment required to distinguish genuine insights from misleading illusions within my unconscious exploration. Yeah, so I could talk about the real and fake maps forever. It's one of the most interesting parts about this dream. The fact that I have these two maps in my back pocket. And they weren't maps that I used. They seemed to be maps that were internalized, that only became objects when they were requested by another. And then I give the fake map, so I give fake information to this woman. And she kind of knows. There's this like motherly knowing. You know when your mom knows when you're lying? It's kind of like that. It's like it's a lie that would fool anybody else, but there's something about your mother's insight into your own personality where she can discern when you are lying. And that's what happened here. There was a moment at the door where I know that I'm deceiving this person. It's because they deceived me with the snake, which I'll talk about here in a second. But the real and fake maps is such an interesting part of this dream, and I would love if somebody could expand on that more in the comments, because man, is it an interesting part of the dream. It's something that I'm going to have to play out more in future videos. I might even use it in pieces of fiction that I might write, because it's symbolically, it's very, very interesting to me. So the serpent is a potent symbol in Jungian psychology, often representing transformation, healing, or the shadow, the hidden, repressed parts of the self. Stomping on the serpent indicates a confrontation with these shadow aspects, a necessary act for personal growth and individualization. So yeah, there's something about the snake that I'm still trying to understand. In Jordan Peterson's debate with Richard Dawkins, he talks about how Christ said that he would have to be put on the cross like the serpent was put on the rod in the desert in Exodus. And there's this idea that the serpent and Christ are one, and that there's a link there, that the serpent is an image of the self. And I don't fully understand this idea yet, so it's going to take me a little bit more time to explore it. then hopefully maybe I'll be able to expand on it a bit more. But it's a very, very interesting idea it's lurking in my unconscious. So I was grappling with it in the dream, but I still don't know how exactly to put it into rational thought, I guess. I don't know how to put it into words. Jung touches on this in studies his studies in alchemy in his collected works. I recently reread it, and I'm going to have to kind of highlight passages and come back to this, because the stomping of the snake, it's not just a confrontation with the shadow. It's also an integration of the shadow. Even though I'm stomping on it, I'm somehow integrating that within me. And the snake as a symbol, it's the part of the unconscious that is ultimately unknown. It can't be known by definition, because there's parts of your unconscious that can come to light. They come to light as archetypes, and they kind of bubble up that way, and then you can make them conscious, and you can integrate your conscious self with your unconscious self, and that's the process of individualization that Jung highlights, right? It's the actualization of the self. It's bridging the gap. It's pulling the two aspects of the psyche together. But there are aspects of the unconscious that are fundamentally unknown and inherently unknown, and they can never be known, and that's what the snake represents. It's very, very difficult to talk about, so I'm going to move on. The spiral staircase. Yeah. Ascending the narrow spiraling staircase suggests a deepening journey into the unconscious, where each step signifies a deeper level of self-awareness. The anachronistic portraits of historical figures in incorrect attire highlights the dissonance between my current self and past influences or outdated aspects of my personality. This disorientation signifies the challenges of integrating different parts of my identity. So with regards to the spiral staircase, it was probably the most claustrophobic I've ever felt in my life. I'm somebody who doesn't feel claustrophobia. I like small, cozy, closed-off spaces. I don't have a natural inclination to claustrophobia, but this is the most claustrophobic I've ever felt in my life. I'm going up this spiral staircase, and as I ascend it, the staircase is closing in on me. It's just slowly and slowly closing in on me. And the architecture of the house is something that reminds me almost of the Winchester mansion that was famously built by the widow of whatever the man's name. I'll put it up on screen, Mr. Winchester. But she kind of went insane there a little bit, and she kept having parts added onto the house that didn't go anywhere. Rooms and doors that led to brick walls, staircases that led into ceilings, and stuff like that. She did this to confuse the ghosts that she thought were lurking within her house. Now, the Winchester house is very, very interesting. I talked about it a little bit in my dream analysis video where we talked about my apocalyptic visions. I want to go more into that in the future, because I think the Winchester house, even though it existed in real life, which grounds it to reality, there's something deeply symbolic about it that I want to touch on more. There is this aspect of labyrinth type houses that I seem to get trapped in many of my dreams, not just this one, but again, we went through that in the apocalyptic visions dream, and I've had many dreams where I'm trapped in labyrinth type mansions or houses, and it's something that I want to expand more on future videos, but I'll stop there for today. The one friend. So the presence of a companion symbolizes the persona or aspects of myself that interact with the external world. The office bedroom hybrid space represents the merging of the professional and personal realms, indicating a need to balance different facets of my life. The disappearance of my friend reflects the elusive nature of support systems or the internal struggle to maintain balance amidst chaos. So, my friend in the dream, I don't even know how to describe him, because I don't have a brother. I have a sister, but I don't have a brother in real life. But this felt like a brother. This felt like somebody who I knew from birth. In fact, it almost felt like a twin, somebody who I knew from before birth. I could almost say that this brother was me. Like, it was a separation of myself. It was another version of me that I was in the mansion with until, of course, he disappears. Now, I think that this does reflect the unreliability of support systems in your life. Parents will pass away, grandparents will pass away, sometimes siblings will pass away unexpectedly, sometimes children, God forbid, will pass away unexpectedly, and your support systems will be pulled out from underneath you like that in a flash. And that can throw you into an abyss of chaos that is very, very difficult to manage. This is very dark, but when family members die, it's not it's not often that this happens, but this does happen often enough that I need to point it out. But when people lose those support systems in their life, when they lose somebody who's kind of a pillar of their existence, it's somebody who they lean on, a constant cane that they no longer have anymore. A lot of times people join those people. They exit the world on their own accord because not having that structure to your life, that pillar to lean on, having that pulled out from under you can just destroy you. And there's something about this dream that's telling me that I can't rely on that. I can't rely on some level, I can't rely on anybody in my life. I have great, great people in my life who support me in a lot of fantastic ways. And if they were to disappear tomorrow, there's a part of my mind that's trying to grapple with the fact that that could become a reality and will become a reality at some point. It's Murphy's Law, and it's just the state of nature that my parents are going to pass away at some point. So my there's this aspect of my psyche that's grappling with that and trying to prepare me for that. So I think that I've gotten to a place now where if everybody in my life that I knew and loved were to just blank out of existence or pass away suddenly, I think that I'm strong enough now to be able to handle that. But it's only because I've meditated deeply upon this dream and I've really thought about what it means to have that companion show up, because he shows up out of nowhere. In some sense, that's how your parents show up. You come into this world and they're already here. So there's an element of that that's embedded within this companion character who just appears there as if he's always been there, and then he leaves as if he was never there to begin with. So I think I'll stop there for that point of the dream. The figure with the old lantern and the climbing old woman, horrifying image. The figure holding the lantern embodies the guiding light of consciousness amidst the darkness of the unconscious. His obscure face suggests the unknown or unexplored aspects of myself that I seek to illuminate. The climbing old woman, now transformed and grotesque, represents the persistent shadow or unresolved issues that continue to influence my psyche despite my efforts to overcome them. Okay, so the old man with his face obscured, there was this feeling in the dream when I was looking down at him that he was me, that I was looking at a mirror, but I couldn't see his face. It was obscured by smoke or fog, because to look at him as if he was myself would kind of mess up my mind in a way. There was a necessity for obscuring his face almost in my unconscious. So I recognize that being now to be kind of an older version of myself, a more wise version of myself. Maybe he's the old man or the sage in my own life. I don't exactly know how to visualize that man, but that old man in some ways is me down the line. He's me down the stream, and he's illuminating something to me, and he's pointing up to that shadow that you're constantly grappling with. Now, I've grappled with my shadow throughout points of my life, and there's a specific area where I was like 19, 20, 21 years old where I was really grappling with it. But this is something that does not go away. This is something that you will be grappling with throughout your entire life. So while I am kind of exposing myself here, I'm only doing that in a way that all of humanity is exposed. So we all deal with what I'm putting forth here. We all deal with a shadow. We might not all dream about it in the same way. For me, it's an old woman who's naked and looks like a spider crawling down the side of a mansion. Pretty horrific vision, but for me, that's how I visualize this pursuit of the shadow, which is constantly there. It's constantly there in your life. There's again, it's the snake. It's this ultimately unknown, hidden aspect of yourself. I can almost imagine it. Berserk actually does a great way of envisioning this with the Berserk costume, or not costume, but the armor that kind of crawls up Guts' back, and it kind of overtakes him. And there's a feeling like that Berserk's not the first one to touch on this. This feeling that there's almost like a snake that crawls up your spine and then takes over your brain, and then the shadow envelops you, and you become possessed by the shadow. And you can see that as being possessed by demons, or, you know, having Satan in your heart, or however you want to put words on that. But there's this, you become overcome by your shadow if you don't recognize that it's constantly chasing you, if you don't look at it, if you don't, put the snake on the rod and look at it, like in the Exodus story. There's a reason why that's in that story. It's a weird aspect of the story to put the snake on the rod and to look at the snake so the snake stop biting you. It's the same thing here. I need to confront my shadow. I need to look at it. I need to integrate it in order for it to not consume me, and for me to not become my shadow and then wreak havoc upon the world. So, yeah, the old woman as the spider. Again, she only had 4 limbs, but they were kind of disjointed out, like as if she was a spider. Horrifying image. We're almost done this dream here. The final confrontation. The culmination of my dream, where the old woman requests the real map, signifies the necessity of authentic self-understanding and the rejection of superficial or deceptive beliefs. Handing her the genuine map symbolizes my willingness to embrace true self-knowledge and confront the depths of my unconscious. So, to kind of conclude for today, I know this was a very long dream analysis video, but this was a very complicated dream. I think I only touched the surface today. I'm going to need your guys' help in the comments. I possibly will do a part 2 to this dream analysis video, but to conclude today, I want to highlight kind of where I was at when I had this dream. This dream happened about a year ago. It could have been 2 years ago. But it was when I was kind of finally coming full circle in my religious beliefs, I guess. I was raised Catholic, raised within the church, but early on in my life, very early, started questioning things very deeply, got to the point where I thought I could disprove God. That's the fake map. That's what that represents. Thought that I could disprove God. I was a fully convinced atheist, completely rationally and scientifically minded. I had no room for the abstract in my life. And then I had an encounter with my shadow. And I also had some religious experiences that opened me up to my unconscious, opened me up to the abstract, to the unknown world. And I started to interact with it. And then I kind of came full circle in realizing that I need to orientate myself towards something higher than myself. And that kind of circled me back towards religion. And that's kind of where I was at with this dream. At the time that I had this dream, I was still kind of grappling with which religion is right. And I'm still grappling with that today in my What is God videos. I'm still grappling with that question, but I was grappling very kind of from a desert perspective. I didn't really know what to believe in. I didn't know if I should go back to Catholicism and Christianity, or maybe if I should try Islam, or maybe if I should try Hinduism, or maybe if Buddhism's the right path. So I was kind of exploring all of these religions as deeply as I could to kind of get a grip on what fits for me. Where do I need to be? And eventually I kind of came fully back to Catholic Christianity. That's just where I fit. That's not to say that I think Christianity's more correct than the other religions. Again, I go through this in my What is God video. I think they all have a piece of the pie. I don't know if all the pieces of the pie are equal. That's probably why I side a little bit more with Catholic Christianity, but I think all of the pieces of the pie are necessary for fully understanding God and fully understanding religion in its deepest understandings, I guess. So for me, I was in a period of my life where I was kind of coming out of this nihilistic depression that I was in, where I thought I had the world figured out. I thought I had enough science to disprove God 100%, which is something that you can't do. You can't disprove God 100%, and you can't prove God 100%, and that is the fun of life. And without that, life would not be very fun. So this is all stuff that I was grappling with in this dream. I was also grappling with, you know, at the time I was living on my own, and I had just kind of, this was like the first year or two I started to live on my own, no parents in the house. I'm just living with roommates. I'm just living with myself. So I went from, my parents split up in, I think, 2014. I lived with my dad for a bit. That was kind of order, too much order, but order. And then I lived with my mom for a bit. Chaos, not too chaotic. She's still a great mother, but chaos, no rules compared to dad, and kind of do whatever you want. And then I get into the actual desert, the actual, unknown, which is me living on my own and not having any influence. So I've lived with complete order, I've lived with complete chaos, and now I'm kind of in this desert where I'm trying to reintegrate aspects of myself. I'm trying to rebuild myself from the ground up in a way. So for me, the confrontation with the old woman is me kind of confronting my inner, feminine self, my anima, and trying to integrate that, trying to understand it, trying to understand how I run from it. In which ways am I avoiding my internal feminine qualities? In which ways do I need to integrate them? And so on and so forth. Very, very layered dream. Very, very complicated. Ultimately, incredibly horrifying to experience. The level of dread and anxiety that I felt experiencing that dream is so intense. I've never felt it in real life. So, in some ways people say that your dreams are more real than reality. And in that sense, it was. It invoked emotion out of me that I don't normally feel in real life, at least not to that intensity. So I wanted to release this video on Halloween. Unfortunately, I couldn't get it out in time. I really needed to take my time and analyze this dream intensely. It's a dream that I've been grappling with for, like I said, over a year now for sure. And I'm going to be grappling with it for probably the rest of my life. I'm glad that I have it written down in kind of a beautiful way. I hope that was engaging for you guys to listen to my dream today. I tried to spice it up and make it sound fun or horrifying. Less fun, more horrifying probably. But yeah, if you guys want to share your dreams and you want them analyzed on this channel, I would be more than glad to do that. Now, as I stated in previous dream analysis videos, you guys need to be careful in doing that. I exposed myself a lot today. If you guys have, even any ability of analyzing dreams, you guys can get a pretty deep insight into my psyche from just listening to what I had to say today. That being said, I think a lot of the things that I expressed today are just common aspects of the unconscious. They're things that we all grapple with. For me, it just manifested itself into this particular dream that was, for me, quite horrifying. But like I said, be careful with the dreams that you share. If you want to do it anonymously, you can. But I would love to analyze some of your guys' dreams on this channel. I think that would be really fun. I'm going to keep bringing my own dream analysis videos to you guys so that hopefully you guys can learn through experience how to analyze your own dreams, how to make the connections. And yeah, I hope these videos are helpful for some people. And if they are, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Don't forget to comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. Let me know what you guys thought about my dream. Yeah, and thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the world to me. It truly does. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.